What's up everybody, it's Technicians Tuesday and it's time to discuss what's better, one or two engines. For this week's contest prize, Maine Coast Marine Products is going to be outfitting the winner's boat with some custom fender covers. So make sure you're subbed and have that bell on and let's get into it. Right out the gate, let's make this clear. There are benefits to both sides and ultimately your situation is going to determine which is best for you. With that being said, let's break this down into a few categories that most of us want to know about. The price, the power, the odds of failure, reliability or security, speed, and the value of time. We'll start out by tackling the price advantages and disadvantages. Now it is going to cost more to purchase, run, and maintain two engines over one. But how much are we talking about here? I mean, what are the numbers? We'll be using rounded MSRP numbers just to make it easier. And for the purchase price, just to keep it simple, we'll compare buying twin 150s against a single 300. A 150 horse engine costs around $14,000 a piece, whereas a 300 is going to cost around $25,000. The difference between the engines alone is only about $3,000. We still need to add up the cost of the rigging though, and the rigging for the twins comes out around $5,000 to $6,000, and the single engine comes out to be about $3,000 to $4,000 for just the standard rigging. So the all-in difference to purchase twins over a single or the single over the twins is only about $5,000 or so more to have two engines. But the price difference doesn't stop there, because now we need to talk about the maintenance costs. You can probably guess it, but you just double the cost, plain and simple. Let's say it costs us $1,000 to maintain an engine per year. With two engines, that cost is now $2,000, and that's all the calculating that we need to do here. What you are probably more concerned with though is the fuel consumption. Boats like to drink fuel, and the more we use them, the more they drink. The 150 burns about 15.5 gallons per hour at wide open throttle, whereas the 300 burns about 26 gallons an hour at wide open throttle. Now on the surface, the twins are going to consume about 5 more gallons per hour at wide open throttle compared to the 300. At cruising speeds though, this might not really be the case. That is only because we are taking these numbers at face value and not considering the load that is on the engine or engines. Yes, the horsepower numbers add up and everything looks the same, but we need to consider the 300 is a 6-cylinder engine and there is only one propeller pushing the entire load or weight of the boat, whereas the two 150s combined make 8 cylinders and there are 2 propellers sharing that load. What this means is that they don't have to work as hard to cruise at the same speed as the single engine does. So, because of the weight of the boat that the engine is pushing, the single engine is possibly going to be consuming just as much fuel as the two engines combined at cruising speed. Now every single boat is different, the conditions change, and there are cases where one or the other will be better suited for that particular boat. But when it comes to the fuel consumption of one engine versus two engines, there isn't as big of a difference that you would think there is at cruising speed, depending on the size and weight of the boat that is being used. The heavier the boat, the more advantage the twins will have over the single, regardless of the length of the boat. This is the same concept for the power category too. Having 8 cylinders over 6 cylinders lightens the load of the boat on the engine. The extra cylinders give us more torque, which is a huge advantage when it comes to pushing heavier loads and bigger boats. In certain situations though, the single engine is going to be faster because it has less drag. But in other applications, the twins will be quicker because of that weight factor of the boat and having more of a load on the engine. We can also include control here as well. If you've seen our videos on docking and last week's video on propping, then you know that having that second propeller in the water is going to give us more grip on the water, which adds up to more control of the boat over the single engine. It makes it a lot easier to dock and to turn in tight spots. Not to say that one is better than the other, because with practice and experience, most boats can be controlled professionally regardless of how many engines they have or don't have. Then there are others that can't be controlled at all. Bringing us to the other costly portion of this topic, and that is the failure rate or the odds of a failure. There is a common saying along the lines of, with two engines, I'll always be able to get back on one, opposed to having an issue with a single engine and not being able to get back home without a sea tow. Though this is true in a lot of scenarios, there are also the scenarios like having trouble with the fuel or fuel system, which will affect both engines. Even if you have two engines, neither one of them will run on water. The odds to having a failure and losing multiple engines are a lot less likely than having a failure with a single engine, and there isn't any getting around it there. So in this category, the odds are going to go to the twin engine setup over the single engine. As far as the reliability is concerned though, I think it is safe to say that the outboard and the marine industry has come to a point where there really isn't any manufacturer out there putting out an unreliable product. That may have been the case 30 years ago, but it isn't today. That also isn't to say that certain engines will not outlast others, because they will. But when it comes down to being a reliable engine, almost all engines have a really good amount of reliability. We need to talk about time though. Having one or two engines that don't break down and are reliable is great and all, but what about the ability to use them? If you haven't already though, it's the right time to make sure you are subscribed, follow us on Instagram, and drop a comment below with the hashtag #FenderCovers for your chance to win. Now if you do most of your boating offshore or in a larger lake where weather conditions play a huge part in when you get to take the boat out, then the value of time goes above whether one or two is better. When most boaters spend the majority of time at work and then we only have specific windows of time to actually get out on the water, when the wind picks up and the weather goes south, then we can't go out at all. And this is where the boat size and or length comes into play. The larger the boat, the better chances are that we won't be stuck at the dock when the wind picks up on Saturday and we are ready to go out. It's a point that needs to be given some thought, because the bigger the boat is, there's a certain point in time when one engine just won't do. I want to put it out there that eventually not having enough power when we need it can ruin the boating experience altogether. So make sure you consider underpowering a boat or buying an underpowered boat just to save some cash. It might take away the amount of time that you get to use the boat, as well as limit the use of the boat. Being underpowered can render a boat almost useless. The last thing on our list is the speed and the ride of the boat. How fast do you want to go, and how fast do you want to get on plane? When it comes to getting on plane, like we've talked about with the 6 cylinders and 1 prop versus having 8 cylinders and 2 props, the twins are going to put the boat on plane a lot quicker than the single. When it comes to the top end speed though, we know that the weight of the boat is going to be the determining factor here. If we have a really light boat, the single engine will push the boat almost as fast, if not faster, in most cases than the twins, simply because of the drag factor, having one less prop and lower unit in the water, creating more drag against the water. Slowing the boat down, we also have to consider the weight of the engine as well. Having 2 engines over 1 is going to add a couple hundred extra pounds on the back of the boat. The 150 weighs about 450 pounds, and the 300 only weighs from 550 to 600 pounds depending on the manufacturer. That extra 200 to 300 pounds will take away from the top end speed of the boat, not to mention the ride of the boat at top end. Depending on the weight of the boat, a lighter boat with that extra weight on the back will tend to porpoise through the water because of the light bow and the heavy transom, making for a less enjoyable ride. Don't forget to smash that thumbs up button, let us know what you think in the comments section below, and visit us on our website at bornagainboating.com. Thanks for hanging out, and we look forward to seeing you next week.